There's something unmistakable about a well-spoken air. You notice it before you realize why. It's not the accent, it's not the vocabulary, it's the calm, the steadiness, the way their words land with intention instead of noise. Elite families have mastered this for generations, and they begin teaching it long before their children ever step into a classroom. Most people assume poise is a natural trait, that some children are simply born confident. But behind every polished young aristocrat is an entire system of upbringing designed to shape their voice, their cadence, and the quiet authority that follows them everywhere they go. Elite families don't just teach their children how to speak, they teach them how to be heard. Before we go deeper into the world of polished speech, cultivated diction, and the subtle communication lessons only shared behind closed gates and estate walls, a quick ask. If you're building your own journey toward refinement, elegance, or generational influence, make sure you subscribe. This channel is here to reveal the codes of the elite, the ones no one talks about publicly, and every episode takes you one step closer to mastering them. Now, let's step inside the drawing rooms, private libraries, and after-dinner conversations where the next generation of old money learns how to hold a room without raising their voice. Everything begins with the environment. Elite children grow up around adults who speak with clarity, restraint, and grace. Conversations are not chaotic, they're paced. Statements aren't blurted out, they're considered. They hear more measured speech in their home by age 5 than many people hear in a lifetime. And gradually, they absorb it, not as a skill, but as the natural rhythm of communication. In these households, adults refrain from shouting instructions across rooms. They call children by name, wait for eye contact, and speak directly. This creates a foundation where urgency is never confused with panic, and calm becomes the default. When a child learns early that emotion does not need volume to be expressed, they grow into adults who never feel pressure to raise their voice just to be acknowledged. There is also remarkable patience in the way elite parents interact with their children. They allow pauses. They allow searching for the right word. They don't rush a sentence or finish it for them. While the rest of the world rewards speed, elite families reward presence. A child learns that a thoughtful answer carries more weight than a quick one. That small lesson alone separates a nervous speaker from a poised one. But what truly shapes their vocal confidence happens during the slow, unglamorous moments of daily life. The breakfast table becomes one of the earliest training grounds. While many families rush through mornings with half-spoken directions and hurried exchanges, elite households treat breakfast as a soft rehearsal for future boardrooms and diplomatic dinners. Children are encouraged to speak about what they read, what they observe, or what they're curious about. Parents listen, genuinely listen, and they respond with complete sentences, building a conversational loop where the child feels their thoughts deserve space. And make no mistake, space is the greatest luxury elite children receive. Not material space, but psychological space. The space to form ideas, test opinions, and articulate them without being mocked or dismissed. This quietly builds the most powerful communication asset of all, the belief that their voice carries value. Another defining difference is how elite families treat interruptions. In many households, interrupting is normal. People talk over one another constantly, competing for airtime. But in elite circles, speaking over someone is viewed as both impolite and unsophisticated. Children are gently corrected when they jump in too soon, and they witness adults model the same behavior. They learn to wait, to read conversational cues, to recognize when someone has finished their thought, and only then do they step in. This isn't just etiquette, it trains their internal timing. It gives them that rare, elegant sense of rhythm in conversation that makes others lean in rather than pull away. They also learn early that silence is not awkward, it's strategic. Elite households allow quiet moments during walks, during dinners, during rides between estates, so children grow comfortable with calm. They don't rush to fill pauses with chatter, and they don't fear stillness. This alone transforms how they speak. Their words stop sounding like desperate attempts to fill emptiness and start sounding like intentional contributions. By the time an elite child reaches adolescence, they have already internalized something profound. A poised voice doesn't try to dominate a room. It gives the room a reason to pay attention. And just when you think their training stops with environment and etiquette, you discover something even more subtle: the art of emotional regulation through speech. For elite families, poise is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to communicate emotion without losing self-command. They teach their children to express frustration without aggression, excitement without chaos, and disagreement without disrespect. The words matter, yes, but the tone matters more. This is why when a young heir speaks, you seldom hear defensiveness or insecurity in their voice. You hear steadiness. They were raised to believe that reacting impulsively is a sign of immaturity, but responding with composure is a mark of character. And that lesson then leads us deeper into the private coaching, the whispered corrections, and the generational traditions that shape how the elite speak long before they reach adulthood. As children in elite families grow older, their training becomes more intentional, yet it never looks like training. Nothing is forced, nothing feels like a lesson. It's all woven into daily life so subtly that the child believes it's simply the way the world works. One of the most powerful tools used in elite households is exposure to adult conversations. From an early age, children are present in rooms where sophisticated dialogue unfolds. They sit quietly at the edge of drawing rooms during afternoon tea. They hover at the doorway while their parents discuss travel plans, charitable decisions, or upcoming events. They accompany adults to luncheons, small gatherings, or cultural outings where social grace is expected. These children aren't asked to speak, they're asked to observe. And in observing, they learn the rhythm of refinement. They listen to how their parents and grandparents thank someone. They hear how disagreements are softened, how opinions are layered with nuance, how compliments are delivered with sincerity instead of excess. They witness how an elite conversationalist never rushes, never rambles, and never tries too hard. They study this long before they ever attempt to emulate it. When a child's ear becomes tuned to elegance, their voice naturally evolves to match it. Then come the private coaching moments. Small corrections delivered so gently they feel like secrets passed between generations. A parent might place a hand on a child's shoulder after a dinner party and offer a whisper, "Slow down when you speak. People will listen longer." Or, "Lift your chin when you make your point. It shows confidence." Or simply, "Let the other person finish. It makes your words stronger." These comments are never framed as flaws. They are invitations to rise to a higher standard. And because children instinctively want to impress the adults they admire, they accept the guidance almost effortlessly. Another defining element of elite speech training is storytelling. In elite families, stories are currency. At dinners, on holidays, during gatherings with extended family, stories are exchanged like heirlooms. Tales of ancestors, travels, challenges, and triumphs are retold with such vividness that children are captivated. This naturally strengthens their imagination, expands their vocabulary, and teaches them how to command attention without demanding it. When a child grows up hearing articulate, well-paced stories, they learn structure without ever studying it. They begin to understand the subtle rise and fall of a narrative, the importance of pausing at the right moment, and the art of leaving people wanting more. And perhaps the most transformative lesson embedded in those stories is a quiet, powerful message. Your words carry legacy. Once a child believes their voice can shape how others think, feel, or behave, they treat their speech with far more care. As they transition into teenage years, elite families introduce another layer of refinement, conversation with purpose. Small talk becomes an exercise in diplomacy. Expressing opinions becomes an exercise in discernment. By this age, their parents do not correct them as often. Instead, they ask questions that force them to think before speaking. What makes you feel that way? What would be a more thoughtful way to say that? What do you think the other person heard you say? These prompts build invaluable self-awareness. The child learns not just what they are saying. Elite teenagers are also introduced to situations where their voice must adapt. They learn how to speak to their peers differently from how they speak to elders. They learn how to address staff with respect rather than superiority. They learn how to shift tone in a professional environment, how to soften it in personal moments, and how to strengthen it in settings where leadership is expected. Every social environment becomes a training ground. Every conversation becomes a lesson. But perhaps the greatest transformation happens when they enter the world of structured etiquette education. Many elite families enroll their children in programs, not to learn manners, but to refine their already cultivated presence. Public speaking instructors, debate coaches, elocution tutors, and etiquette consultants all play quiet roles behind the scenes. Their goal is not to change the child, it's to polish what the family has already shaped. They teach posture, pacing, breath control, and the subtle modulation that gives a sentence impact. They help young heirs develop a voice that is firm without force, elegant without pretension, soft yet undeniably powerful. And yet, even these formal lessons pale compared to what truly shapes a young, elite speaker: expectation. Children rise to the expectations placed upon them. When they are raised in a world where poise is normal, where articulation is admired, where elegance is a cultural standard, they naturally strive to embody it. And they do. Because elite families aren't just teaching children to speak well, they are teaching them to represent their lineage with every word, and this legacy-driven mindset is what ultimately gives their speech its unmistakable aura of confidence. But there is one more layer to this transformation, one that only becomes visible when these children step outside their bubble and into the world that watches them closely. When elite children enter the wider world, private schools, international programs, elite summer academies, and philanthropic events, they quickly notice something. Most people their age don't speak the way they do. They don't carry the same calmness. They don't shape their words with intention. They don't pause before they speak, or consider the power of silence, or move conversations forward with grace. And it's in these moments that everything their family taught them crystallizes. Suddenly, their poise is not just a trait, it's an advantage. Elite families know this. In fact, they count on it. Their children learn to speak with poise not only to uphold tradition, but to navigate a world where perception shapes opportunity. A well-spoken young adult is remembered long after louder personalities fade. They are taken seriously in rooms where everyone else is still trying to earn credibility. Their opinions carry weight even when their experience is limited, because they deliver them with the steady confidence of someone who understands the responsibility of being heard. But this level of refinement doesn't happen by accident. There is a final, powerful element that elite families teach: the art of restraint. They raise children who know when not to speak. A poised child knows that not every thought deserves an audience. They learn that listening first reveals more than speaking first ever could. They understand that silence can be protective, dignified, and strategic. This sense of restraint becomes their shield in a world where impulsive words destroy reputations in seconds. While others rush to fill conversations with noise to feel included, elite children learn to participate only when they can elevate the dialogue. Their voice becomes a tool, not a reflex. They speak to connect, to clarify, to calm, to guide. They don't waste words. They don't chase validation. They don't rely on volume or emotion to command attention. The result is a presence that feels far older than their years. Teachers notice it. Strangers notice it. Later in life, employers, investors, and influential figures notice it too. A poised speaker stands out everywhere because poise itself has become rare. Elite children are also taught something deeper, something almost philosophical. Your voice shapes your destiny. They grow up hearing that opportunities are not just earned through talent or credentials, but through how you present yourself. They understand that a strong education and a prestigious background can open doors, but the ability to articulate thoughts with clarity is what keeps those doors open. And while the world often confuses poise with privilege, the truth is more nuanced. Privilege simply gives them exposure. Poise is a practice, one cultivated from childhood through repetition, modeling, feedback, and high expectations. By adulthood, poise becomes their language, their voice, their cadence, their presence, all shaped by years of invisible lessons. They don't need to try to sound polished. Polished is simply who they've become. What the world sees as effortless is actually inherited discipline. What people interpret as superiority is often just practiced composure. What appears innate is, in truth, deeply taught. And whether they speak 5 words or 50, they leave an impression that lingers long after they've exited the room, a soft echo of generations who believed that the ability to communicate with elegance was not a luxury, but a responsibility.